Hey, welcome back to The Explainer. So picture the absolute worst part of living in a major city. Yeah, gridlock. It just completely drains our time, drains our patience, and for decades, right, sci-fi has promised us a way out, literally flying over the traffic. Well, today we're looking at the hard data, because that promise, it's literally knocking on our door. We're talking about the reality of eVTOLs in 2026.
Okay, let's dive right into this. The contrast we're looking at fundamentally rewrites urban geography. Think about it. Landing at JFK and driving into Manhattan is typically this agonizing 50 to 75-minute crawl. It's brutal. But by air taxi, that exact same journey becomes a 7-minute hop right over the skyline. A whole hour-long commute basically shrinks down to the length of like 2 songs on a playlist. How crazy is that?
And this shift is almost real. And we really need to emphasize how incredibly close that almost actually is. We aren't talking about fancy CGI or concept art anymore. No way. These are fully built machines, literally weeks of testing away from carrying everyday passengers. When you look at the timelines from companies like Joby, their partnerships with major airlines, and the actual schedules coming from the FAA, it all points straight to 2026 as the year that 75-minute crawl becomes a total relic of the past.
Which brings us to America's air taxi race, Joby versus Archer. Now, what's really interesting about this matchup is that it's effectively a brand new space race, just, for your local downtown. And it's primarily being fought by 2 heavyweights, Joby Aviation and Archer Aviation. Both of these guys have poured absolute billions into R&D and high-stakes testing. Right now, Joby is leading the regulatory pack. Their S4 model has reached FAA Stage 4 out of 5. It hits about 200 miles per hour, and they're actually targeting Dubai in 2026 for their very first commercial flights. But chasing right behind them is Archer's Midnight aircraft at Stage 3. Here's the kicker, though. Archer has massive institutional backing from United Airlines, and they are aggressively planning a New York City network. So it's an incredibly tight race with 2 very, very different launch strategies.
But honestly, neither of these companies could move forward without a massive, absolutely critical milestone that hit in March 2026. The FAA officially published its very first rulebook for air taxis. You see, for years, the biggest hurdle wasn't battery tech or aerodynamics, it was the law. By publishing this rulebook, the federal government officially set the rules of the sky. The regulatory path is, well, it's officially paved.
Let's move to the next piece of the puzzle and see how this builds. Because here is the twist, the vertiport bottleneck.
So the technology is there, the federal rules are ready, but here's the rug pull. Having the absolute coolest flying machine in the world doesn't matter even a little bit if you have nowhere to park it, charge it, or, actually load passengers into it. And right now, 0. That is the exact number of permits issued by any U.S. city for a commercial landing hub. 0. The federal government says it's totally okay to fly, but cities? They move slow. Between zoning boards, community noise complaints, and, this is a big one, the limits of the electrical grid to handle rapid charging between flights, all of that is keeping that permit number firmly at 0.
And while America currently sits stuck at 0, the rest of the world is absolutely not waiting around. China holds a really significant global lead right now. Out of the entire world, there are only 2 fully certified operators actively flying right now, and both are Chinese companies, specifically EHang and Autoflight. Because they have a completely different regulatory environment and heavily state-backed infrastructure, they aren't just running tests, they're already up in the air. They've completely cut through the red tape that's currently causing all this gridlock for American vertiports.
And this brilliantly illustrates the exact, bizarre moment in history we find ourselves in right now. The aircraft is nearly ready, but the cities, they just aren't yet. The incredible hype around electric vertical takeoff vehicles has completely outpaced our actual municipal readiness. We've basically spent the last decade engineering the absolute perfect flying taxi, but spent almost 0 time figuring out how to rewire our urban spaces to actually use them. The engineers did their jobs, the federal regulators did their jobs, but the city planners, they got caught completely flat-footed.
So I want to leave you with a question to really think about. The aircraft are ready, but are our cities? Next time you look out the window at your own local skyline, ask yourself, where do these machines actually fit? Who's going to pay to upgrade that electrical grid? And honestly, how long is it going to take before your local zoning board finally catches up to the technology that's literally already sitting on the tarmac? The future of urban transit is fully built. It's sitting in a hangar, just waiting for the concrete to dry on the landing pads. It is this fascinating, high-stakes standoff between cutting-edge tech and age-old bureaucracy. Keep an eye on those local city council meetings, folks, because that is where the true future of flying taxis is actually going to be decided. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and I will catch you in the next one.